Now, the Trump administration has just unveiled their plan to go after Medicaid. Now, this plan, which is being attacked from progressives and disability advocates, uh, as well as people who are, represent the poor, uh, are saying that this is deeply cruel and would allow states to convert federal Medicaid funding into a block grant program. Now, turning the program into a block grant program is, of course, something that conservatives have been looking forward to doing so for quite some time. Now, the reason is less people will be on Medicaid. They'll be able to cut the rolls and have less people on this program. As it stands now, Medicaid has always provided unlimited matching federal spending to states based on whatever they spend providing care to the poor. So ACA had actually expanded Medicaid to states that would take it on the promise that, yeah, we will cover about 98% of your expenses on Medicaid if you expand it. Now, Republican governors are like, well, yeah, but what if you pull that funding back? Which is always a possibility. But under the ACA, they said, no, we're going to guarantee this funding for some time and make sure that we cover most, if not all, of the costs of expanding Medicaid to the poorest people in your states. So now it makes sense to have unlimited matching federal funding to match whatever the state needs, right? Now, if the state, by the way, decides, for example, like California, they're like, let's add dental and prescription drug coverage. Well, okay, then the money from the government would rise to match what the state is paying. And look, I think that's a great idea. I think dental care is healthcare. I think prescription drugs are also an important part of healthcare. So look, that makes all sorts of sense. But under the new program, the state would start using a formula to determine ahead of time at the beginning of the year how much it will spend on the adult Medicaid program. Then it would get a fixed federal share in either a lump sum or per person amount. So now the question here on that is, wait, how do you know what you're going to spend before you spend it? You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what people's healthcare needs will be during the year. You don't know if there's going to be, for example, a recession that makes a lot of people lose their jobs, and suddenly now they're eligible for Medicaid and have health problems, or a new drug comes out, or a lot of people, have to have this new drug that's actually more expensive to deal with their, medical issues. And so that's a problem. Now, Seema Verma, head of CMS, says, well, we'll allow waivers, right? But you got to file a waiver on that as well. Okay, but if you live in a state where your politicians are monstrous and decide not to ask for that or do any sort of exceptions or ask for more funding to meet the need, then, well, what happens? You're screwed. And if you don't think that could happen, remember, the ACA was originally set up to expand Medicaid to all 50 states until it was challenged by the Supreme Court. Following that challenge that was successful, a lot of Republican states said, no, we're not going to expand Medicaid. We're not going to take federal money and expand Medicaid with it because we're not interested in doing that. No, we want to stick it to Obama. We don't like that. Now, that leaves millions of poor people, or left millions of poor people without access to health care. So that's a problem. Now, the plan would also allow states to cover fewer prescription drugs for enrollees in this block grant program. So you might get stuck with more out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs that may be life-saving that are not covered under this plan. They also could decide who exactly to cover and omit traditional Medicaid benefits like long-term care, transportation to medical appointments, and retroactive coverage for people who get care in the months before they receive Medicaid, which of course can add up. So again, this is a huge problem. So now this former Obama administration official who ran the Medicaid program, a woman named Cindy Mann, said this could, quote, skinny down the benefits of Medicaid significantly. Now, if that's not bad enough, the states will also be allowed to impose premiums and out of pocket costs on the waiver population at no more than 5% of their household income. And if you're living on $12,000 a year, that 5% is a large chunk of what you have to work with. I mean, you already at this point don't have enough money. So premiums, out of pocket costs, just like traditional insurance. But at least you have some sort of cap. But again, not good enough. So the other issue that could be devastating that I've been warning about quite some time whenever the government says, well, we need a block grant program for quote unquote flexibility for the states, is that you don't necessarily have to spend block grant money on what you say you're going to spend block grant money on. Meaning, they could, for example, Alabama could cut taxes on their resident rich people, right? Corporations, and then use money that's from the block grant that should go to the Medicaid program and just plug their holes with it, the budget holes, and not spend that, on actually covering anyone. Or they could send more of this money towards covering corporate giveaways and subsidies. The amount of ways that Republicans could have used this block grant is immeasurable, and that's exactly why they want it. Now, advocates for poor people and disabled people are speaking up. Alice Wong, director of the Disability Visibility Project, said this, quote, poor disabled people in particular, are going to die. Not an exaggeration. Now, look, you know why it's not an exaggeration? Because if you don't have health care and you have a serious condition and you don't have the money for it, as people on Medicaid don't have money. That's why they're on Medicaid. If they don't have that, then yes, they die. Around 46,000 Americans die from lack of health care. Or at the very best situation, you get even more financially ruined as you have to take out more and more debt as somebody who already doesn't have that money. Public citizen healthcare policy advocate Egan Kemp also said that Trump's nefarious program is just a Medicaid block grant by another name, and the only opportunity it will provide us is to miss out on needed care or go broke on trying to get it. Trump's plan would ensure that many working families who are currently covered by Medicaid will face cuts to their services, wait lists for needed care. Wait, I thought we were only supposed to have waiting lists for socialized medicine. Weird. But Republicans are literally making that happen by trying to do these block grant cuts. And then the risk of medical debt and bankruptcy from trying to pay for illness, Kemp said in a statement. These further attempts to cut health care are just more evidence that Americans need Medicare for all to protect our access to health care once and for all. Any state that is taking this offer is engaging in, quote, fiscal malpractice. Damn. Now, Elliot Fishman, senior director of health policy with an advocacy group, Families USA, also said this, quote, the administration is acting lawlessly. Another statute regarding Medicaid match rates can be waived administratively. We're better than this, and we, the American people, must hold the Trump administration and Republican members of Congress accountable. And then congressional Democrats also joined in. Here you have Representative Bill Pascrell from New Jersey saying Trump wants to destroy Medicaid while claiming to save it. Gee, that sounds exactly what he's trying to do with Medicare as well. Medicare cuts were also on the table. Social Security cuts are on the table. Donald Trump has expressed interest in cutting these. But the biggest program, or I should say the biggest cuts that he's been trying to make to a program are for Medicaid. His last budget cut $1 trillion, or would have cut $1 trillion from the Medicaid program. And that's, of course, those budgets are a statement of priorities. Meaning if the Republicans get a chance to enact their priorities, well, we've already seen it in action. First, they successfully cut taxes for the rich, and then immediately went after health care. Had they been successful, or had it not been quite a fight, they probably would have went after this next. And so that's a problem, right? Now, there's more here. From Pascal, he says, this fiendish scheme is an Orwellian fable, conjured up by the most shameless pack of liars, to ever occupy our government. Never forget, Republicans' goal is to steal health care from as many Americans as they can. That is a strong statement from Bill Pascrell. Damn. All right, more. Senator Patty Murray says, and this, by the way, she's a top Democrat in the Senate Health Committee, put out a statement. Quote, even after people from across the country spoke out and pressed Congress to reject President Trump's plan to gut Medicaid with his Trump care bill, he's still charging forward with harmful policies that will hurt the many families who rely on Medicaid. Make no mistake, and this is me saying this, make no mistake, Republicans hate the poor. They want to stick it to what they call the takers by killing programs to the poor like Medicaid. It's social Darwinism, and that's what this is. It's a social Darwinist attack on the most vulnerable people in the country, the poor and the disabled. And it has to be stopped. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.